He said, "Man, that sure is some handsome stagecoach. That is what they name a motor, a bus, a motor domestic." For 60 years, Ernest Borgnine saved quiet about the co-superstar who made his lifestyle's hell. Now surprising information emerge. Approximately what absolutely befell on set? Violent outbursts, sabotaged scenes, and the espresso throwing incident that left someone with second diploma burns. However, the maximum explosive revelation wasn't just professional, it became deeply non-police these days. The fact approximately Hollywood's most risky feud subsequently comes to mild Ernest Borgnine's path to Hollywood changed into anything however planned, born Hers Ephron Borgnino in 1917 in Hampton, Connecticut. He began life as the son of Italian immigrants, chasing the American dream. But before he could even shape recollections of his birthplace, his existence took an surprising flip. Whilst he turned into just two, his dad and mom separated. His mother took him to Italy, wherein he spent the next 5 years absolutely surrounded through a brand new international hospitality he lived in, Carpi, close to Maud-speaking handiest Italian, and soaking up the tradition as though he were born there then, in 1923. The whole thing modified once more. His parents reconciled, and the circle of relatives returned to America. This move wasn't pretty much coming domestic. It became about beginning over. His father modified his call from Camillo to Charles. The own family name becomes shortened from Borgnino to Borg. 9 try to match in, and sounds greater American for younger, Nest. This shift in identification was just the beginning of many transformations that might outline his future, developing up in New Haven, Connecticut. Borgnine had no interest in performing. He wasn't the child dreaming of Hollywood or sneaking into theaters to look at films. He becomes centered on sports, playing the physicality and opposition. His high college yearbook had no point out of drama or theater at that point. There was not anything to suggest he might ever step in the front of a digital camera. However, fate had an extraordinary plan, and it started out with the United States Navy. In 1935, clean out of excessive college, he enlisted. He became stationed on the USS Lamberton, serving on the destroyer for 6 years. By 1941, he turned into ready to transport on receiving an honorable discharge, but simply months later, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. Watching his country go to war, he could not just take a seat back. He re-enlisted in January 1942, this time serving aboard the United States Sil A patrol yacht, tasked with protecting the Atlantic coast. War modified him. It hardened him. It gave him discipline and a deep understanding of camaraderie, something that would later shape the way he performed military characters. On display, by the point he became discharged in 1945, he had risen to the rank of gunner's mate first magnificence, and earned more than 1 military honors. He almost made the Navy his career. He seriously considered re-enlisting for any other 10 years. If he had, Hollywood would have in no way acknowledged his call. However, then his mother said something that stuck with him. She informed him he had a forceful persona and must try performing that unmarried inspiration. Changed the entirety. At the beginning, appearing seemed like an ordinary choice. He had no revel in, no connections, and no idea in which to begin, but he did not allow that stop him. He enrolled in the Randall School of Drama in Hartford, then headed to Virginia, in which he joined the Barter Theater. This was no glamorous begin. The Barter Theater had been based in the course of the Great Depression with a simple unusual idea. Human beings ought to exchange food for tickets. That meant actors had been regularly paid in vegetables as opposed to money. Borg failed to care. He took whatever roles he could get, performing night after night. Whilst he wasn't on degree, he'd become behind the scenes, painting units, fixing costumes, even scrubbing toilets. One nighttime, at some stage in a performance, he had to chase a live chicken throughout the stage. The chook escaped into the target audience, flapping wildly as humans screamed and laughed. It became chaos, but it taught him something essential. He found out the way to improvise, the way to have interaction with the target audience, how to turn a disaster into entertainment. He additionally labored along Destiny's stars like Gregory Peck and Patricia Neal, looking and getting to know, then got here. His huge second, he landed a role in Tennessee Williams. The glass menagerie, he concept, he become. Terrible, the target audience disagreed, the performance become a success, and abruptly, human beings began paying attention with the aid of 1949, he become on Broadway's debut function become, in Harvey, a protracted going-for-walks play starring Hollywood legend James Stewart. But getting there hadn't been clean. Casting directors did not understand what to do with him. His face was too imply for comedy, too funny for drama. It appeared like nobody should figure out where he fit, but Harvey proved them incorrect, playing a male nurse, Borg and determined, his vicinity on stage learning by means of looking Stewart's each pass. He even kept a pocketbook, writing down observations, studying the manner Stewart introduced strains, mastering the craft in actual time. The play ran for 1,775 performances, giving him the stableness he needed. Then TV came calling in 1951. He made his TV debut in Captain Video and his Video Rangers, a low-budget sci-fi collection, where he played a villain. It wasn't a prestigious role, however. Sturgis appreciated to film in long, uninterrupted takes for an actor like Tracy. That turned into no problem for a few. One like Borgnine, it changed into a nightmare. On August 17th, throughout an essential scene, he messed up his strains 7 instances in a row. With each mistake, Tracy's frustration have become greater. Obvious Borgnine felt smaller by means of the second, that anxiety between them bled into their performances. Borgnine played Coy Tremble, a quick-tempered thug. Tracy played John J. McCrae, a person who failed to backtrack their scenes, collectively already had weight. However, not anything as compared to the fight scene within the city's diner filmed on August 23rd. This brawl had become one of the maximum memorable moments inside the film. Tracy, playing a one-armed war veteran, had to take down Borgnine's man or woman, the usage of pure ability in actual existence. Borgnine become bigger. He stood 5'9" in and weighed around 210 lb. Tracy, even though slightly taller at 5'10" in, changed into plenty lighter at 110 and changed into plenty lighter at 110 in 60 lb. Their physical evaluation made the scene even more extreme. They needed 14 takes to get it right. Through the 7th, matters got too actual. Borgnine, by chance, landed a hard punch to Tracy's jaw. The set went silent. Tracy paused for a second, then shrugged it off like nothing had happened. Borgnine, already frightened, now felt even greater on side. He kept messing up the strain. Simplest got worse, then came the instant that stuck with Borg years. Tracy, staring him down, brought the line, "You're not best wrong. You are wrong," on the top of your voice, something approximately the manner he stated. It felt personal, like he wasn't simply "speak me to the man" or "woman, however." Head to Borgnine himself. The final part of the fight worried Tracy, flipping Borgnine onto a desk. The usage of a single-arm judo throw, no stunt doubles, just 2 exhausted actors giving the entirety. They'd filmed the final take at exactly 4:17 p.m. The disappointment, the sweat, the exhaustion, it all made the scene feel uncooked and real. Despite the whole thing, that fight modified things among them. Tracy, who had spent most of the shoot preserving Borgnine on edge, had a new kind of admirer for him. No longer lengthy after he advocated Borgnine for Marty 1955, the position that gained him an Oscar. Then, Ernest Borgnine signed on to Johnny Guitar in 1954, awaiting a typical movie shoot. As a substitute, he found himself inside the middle of one among Hollywood's most explosive feuds. Joan Crawford and Mercedes McCambridge did not simply dislike every different they had been at war. The hassle started out while Crawford determined that MC's husband Fletcher Markle had as soon as been involved together with her. That bit of history turned into sufficient to set her off from that moment on. She made McCambridge's life miserable in the future. Borgnine watched as Crawford stormed onto the set, grabbed McCambridge's costumes, and tossed them onto the highway. The crew had to rush to gather them earlier than they had been lost to the Arizona Barren region. Borgnine attempted to consciousness on his paintings, but the tension made that nearly impossible. Crawford and Bridge refused to be inside the equal room. Their scenes needed to be filmed one by one, forcing director Nicholas Ray to sew everything collectively later. That became frustrating sufficient, but things got even worse on September 3rd. At some point of a specifically heated moment, Crawford and MC Cambridge lost manipulate. They went from shouting to swinging Borgnine, and co-big name Sterling Hayden needed to bounce in and pull them aside. It turned into chaos later. Borgnine is at the most unprofessional behavior he had ever visible. Regardless of all of this, Crawford by no means turned on Borgnine. He really were given in conjunction with her. But he noticed enough to realize that her temper had no limits. In the future, after a terrible take, she grabbed a cup of hot coffee and threw it at a young manufacturing assistant. The terrible men suffered. 2D diploma burns. Borgnine never forgot that moment. In an interview years later, he said, "Joan, become like a ticking time bomb. You in no way knew what could set her off." Then, there has been the time he by chance walked in on her screaming at a fancy dress designer. Her voice became sharp. Her eyes had been wild. Borgnine failed to say a word. He just sponged out of the room. Earlier than she could turn her anger on him, Crawford wasn't all fury, although on the remaining day of filming, she amazed the team with customized bottles of Pepsi. Her husband was the CEO of Pepsi Cola, and this changed into her manner of displaying gratitude, but even that small kindness couldn't erase the tension earlier than she left. She had one very last showdown with McCambridge. She warned her loud enough for every person to listen that she might destroy her profession years later. Borgnine returned at the experience with a mix of awe and disbelief. Working with Joan became like taking walks on eggshells while juggling dynamite. He said she turned into great. However, boy changed into she frightening.